The rain had stopped an hour ago, but Candace Rivers was still soaked through. She sat on the park bench with everything she owned stuffed into 2 garbage bags at her feet. Her clothes were damp, her brown skin felt cold, and her stomach had stopped growling days ago. It just hurt now, a dull ache that reminded her she was still alive even when she wished she wasn't. She stared at the playground across from her bench. Children ran and laughed while their parents watched from nearby. The scene felt like looking through a window at a life she used to know. 3 years ago, she had been a second-grade teacher with an apartment and a future. Then her mother got sick. The medical bills came. Then the layoffs. Then the eviction notice. Then the shelter that was too dangerous to stay in. Now she was here on this bench, wondering if she'd ever feel warm again. A little girl walked toward her. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She wore a beautiful red velvet dress with white tights and shiny black shoes. Her hair was pulled back in neat braids with ribbons on the ends. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. But her eyes looked sad, the kind of sad that Candace recognized because she saw it in the mirror every time she passed a shop window. The girl stopped right in front of Candace. She held a stuffed bunny in one hand. "Excuse me, ma'am," the little girl said softly. Candace looked around, thinking maybe the child was talking to someone else. But there was no one. Just her and this beautifully dressed girl who smelled like expensive shampoo and vanilla. "Yes, sweetheart," Candace said. "I don't have a mama," the girl said. Her bottom lip trembled. "She went to heaven when I was a baby. And my daddy works all the time. And I'm very lonely. Can I spend a day with you, ma'am? Please?" The words hit Candace like a punch to the chest. Here was this child who clearly had money and nice things, asking a homeless woman for company. Asking her for something Candace thought she had nothing left to give. "Oh, baby," Candace whispered. Tears filled her eyes. "What's your name?" "Riley. Riley Bennett." The girl moved closer. "What's yours?" "Candace. Candace Rivers." "That's a pretty name." Riley smiled for the first time. "So can I? Can I spend the day with you? I promise I'll be good. I won't ask for anything. I just don't want to be alone today." Before Candace could answer, a man in an expensive dark blue suit walked up behind Riley. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with light brown skin and tired eyes. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. "Riley," he said gently, "you can't just approach strangers, honey." "But Daddy, she's not a stranger. Her name is Candace." Riley grabbed her father's hand and then reached for Candace's hand too. "And she's nice. I can tell." The man looked at Candace. She saw him take in her worn clothes, her garbage bags, her tangled hair. She waited for the disgust, the dismissal, the order to stay away from his daughter. But instead, his expression softened. "I apologize," he said. "My daughter is very friendly." "No need to apologize," Candace said quietly. "She's lovely." Riley squeezed Candace's hand. "Daddy, can she come with us today? Please? You said we could do whatever I wanted for my birthday." "It's your birthday?" Candace asked. Riley nodded. "I'm 7 today. And all I want is to not be lonely. Just for one day." The man, Riley's father, studied Candace's face. She didn't look away. She had nothing left to hide. Nothing left to lose. "What's your situation?" he asked directly. "Homeless for 6 months. Lost my teaching job 2 years ago. Lost my apartment. Lost everything taking care of my mother before she passed." Candace's voice stayed steady. "I'm not on drugs. I don't drink. I'm just someone who had bad luck and no safety net." He nodded slowly. "Riley has good instincts about people. If you're willing, you can join us today. We're going to the aquarium, then lunch, then probably the bookstore because Riley loves books." Candace's first instinct was to say no. To protect herself from the charity, from the pity, from getting a taste of a good day that would make tomorrow hurt worse. But then she looked at Riley's hopeful face. At those sad eyes that were brightening with possibility. "I'd be honored," Candace said, accepting the kindness without hesitation. Riley threw her arms around Candace's waist. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." The man extended his hand. "James Bennett." Candace shook it. His hand was warm and strong. "Candace Rivers." "Let me be clear about something," James said. "Riley asked you for company and you're giving her that. This isn't charity. You're doing us a favor. Understood?" Candace nodded, though they both knew the truth. She was the one receiving the gift. But his way of framing it let her keep her dignity, and she was grateful for that. "We'll need to make a stop first," James said. He looked at Candace's damp clothes. "There's a store nearby. We'll get you something dry and warm to wear. Please don't argue. You can't enjoy the day if you're uncomfortable." Candace wanted to protest. Wanted to say she was fine. But she wasn't fine. She was cold and damp and miserable. And Riley was looking at her with such hope. "Okay," Candace said simply. "Thank you." Riley kept holding Candace's hand as they walked to James's car. It was a sleek black sedan parked nearby. He loaded Candace's garbage bags into the trunk without comment, without judgment. Just picked them up like they were regular luggage and put them away. The car was warm inside. Riley sat in the back and patted the seat next to her. Candace climbed in and Riley immediately snuggled against her side. "This is already the best birthday ever," Riley whispered. Candace wrapped her arm around the little girl and felt something inside her chest crack open. Something that had been frozen and dead for months. She looked at James in the rearview mirror. He was watching them with an expression she couldn't quite read. "Thank you," Candace mouthed to him. He nodded once, then started the car. As they drove through the city, Candace tried to understand what was happening. This morning she'd been sitting on a bench trying to figure out where to sleep tonight. Now she was in a luxury car with a billionaire and his daughter, heading to buy new clothes. Felt like a dream. Like something that would disappear if she blinked too hard. But Riley's warm weight against her side was real. The car's heat was real. James's kindness was real. For the first time in 6 months, Candace let herself hope. Just a little. Just enough to get through today. Have you ever met someone who changed your entire life in a single moment? What would you have done in Candace's situation? Please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments below. This story gets even more beautiful, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The store James took them to wasn't a regular department store. It was one of those boutiques where everything looked expensive and the salespeople watched you like hawks. Candace felt immediately uncomfortable, aware of how out of place she looked. But James walked in like he owned it. Maybe he did. "We need a complete outfit," he told the woman who approached them. "Something comfortable and warm. Also toiletries and whatever else she might need." The woman looked at Candace with barely concealed surprise, but James's tone left no room for judgment. Riley grabbed Candace's hand. "Can I help pick? Please?" "Of course, sweetheart," Candace said. The next hour was surreal. Riley pulled dresses and pants and sweaters off racks, holding them up for Candace's approval. James sat in a chair nearby, occasionally looking at his phone but mostly watching them with a soft expression. Candace tried on a pair of jeans and a green sweater that Riley insisted brought out her eyes. When she came out of the dressing room, Riley clapped her hands. "You look so pretty," Riley said. "She does," James agreed. His eyes met Candace's and she felt her cheeks warm. They added undergarments, socks, shoes, a warm jacket and toiletries to the pile. Candace kept trying to protest the amount, but James just shook his head. "Riley's birthday wish," he said simply. "Let her be happy." When they left the store, Candace felt human again. Clean clothes, a shower in the store's dressing room, her hair combed and pulled back. She'd even brushed her teeth. Small things that felt like miracles. At the aquarium, Riley held both their hands, swinging between them as they walked through the dimmed corridors. The blue light from the tanks washed over them, making everything feel dreamlike and peaceful. "Look at the jellyfish," Riley breathed, pressing her face to the glass. "They look like floating ghosts." "Beautiful ghosts," Candace said. She felt James looking at her, but she kept her eyes on the tank. Riley talked non-stop, pointing out every fish and reading every information card. She was clearly bright, her mind quick and curious. But underneath the chatter, Candace could hear the loneliness. The way Riley clung to her hand. The way she kept checking to make sure Candace was still there. "My daddy works a lot," Riley said as they watched the sharks swim overhead in the tunnel. "He runs a big company. He has to go to meetings and answer emails and travel sometimes. I have a nanny, Miss Patricia, but she's old and she mostly sits and knits. She's nice but she doesn't really play with me." "That sounds lonely," Candace said gently. "It is." Riley leaned against Candace's legs. "I have friends at school but after school I'm mostly alone. In our big house with all the rooms and no one to talk to." James had walked ahead to take a phone call, but Candace saw his shoulders tense. He could hear his daughter. He knew how lonely she was. "Tell me about school," Candace said. "What's your favorite subject?" "Reading," Riley said immediately. "I love stories. Especially ones where people go on adventures and help each other and become friends." "I used to be a teacher," Candace found herself saying. "2nd grade. I loved teaching reading." Riley's eyes went wide. "Really? What happened? Why aren't you a teacher anymore?" Candace took a breath. She could lie. Could say something vague. But Riley had been honest with her and she deserved honesty back. My mama got very sick. The kind of sick that needed a lot of medicine and doctors. I used all my money to take care of her. Then I lost my job because I missed too much work. Then I lost my apartment because I couldn't pay rent. When Mama died, I had nothing left. No job, no home, no family. Riley's eyes filled with tears. That's so sad. It is, Candace agreed. But today isn't sad. Today I get to spend time with a wonderful girl on her birthday. That's a gift. Riley hugged her tight. You can have some on my birthday. I have plenty. Candace laughed, really laughed for the first time in months. That's very generous. James returned, slipping his phone into his pocket. Everything okay? Perfect, Riley said. Candace used to be a teacher. She taught second grade. James's eyebrows rose. Really? Candace nodded. A lifetime ago. She's going to tell me stories later, Riley announced. After lunch. About adventures and brave people. They ate at a nice restaurant with white tablecloths and too many forks. Candace felt awkward again, but James ordered for all of them with easy confidence. He asked the waiter to bring Riley's favorite chicken fingers and fries, and didn't apologize for ordering kid food in a fancy place. Get whatever you want, he told Candace. Seriously? Anything. She ordered soup and a sandwich, afraid to push her luck. But when it came, it was the best food she'd eaten in half a year. She tried not to cry into her tomato soup. Riley talked about everything. Her school, her friends, her favorite books, her pet goldfish named Bubbles. She was a bright, happy child despite her loneliness. Candace could see James in her, in the shape of her face and the quickness of her mind. What about you, Daddy? Riley asked. Are you having a good birthday too? James smiled at his daughter. The best. I get to spend the whole day with you. That's all I want. But you're always working, Riley said. Even when you're home, you're on your phone or your computer. James's smile faltered. I know, baby. I'm trying to do better. Candace says trying is important, Riley said. That's what matters. James looked at Candace. Smart woman. After lunch, they went to a huge bookstore with 3 floors and a coffee shop inside. Riley ran ahead to the children's section, leaving Candace and James walking together. Thank you for today, James said quietly. I don't think you understand what you've given her. She's giving me more than I'm giving her, Candace said honestly. I doubt that. James paused by a display of bestsellers. Riley's mother died when she was 6 months old. Complications from childbirth. I threw myself into work to deal with the grief. I built my company into something massive. But I failed at being present for my daughter. You're here today, Candace pointed out, because Riley specifically asked for this. For time with me. A 7-year-old shouldn't have to ask her father to spend time with her. But she did ask and you said yes. That counts. James studied her face. You're very kind. Given what you're dealing with, you could be bitter. Angry at the world. But you're not. Anger takes energy I don't have, Candace said. And bitterness doesn't change anything. I'd rather look for good where I can find it. Like today. Like today. They found Riley sitting in a reading nook with a stack of books. She was reading one about a girl who befriended a dragon. When she saw them, she held up the book. Can I get this one? And maybe these other 3? You can get all of them, James said. They left the bookstore with a bag full of books. Riley carried them like treasure. As they walked to the car, Riley slipped her hand into Candace's again. This really is the best birthday, she said. Because I made a friend. Candace squeezed her hand. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. The sun was setting as they drove back through the city. Candace knew the day was ending. Soon she'd be back on her bench with her garbage bags. The magic would be over. But for now she had this moment. This car full of warmth. This little girl leaning against her shoulder. This man who had shown her kindness when he didn't have to. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. James didn't drive back to the park. Instead, he drove to a neighborhood Candace recognized from magazines and TV shows. The houses here weren't just houses. They were estates, set back from the street behind iron gates and long driveways. He pulled up to one of the largest ones. The gate opened automatically. Where are we? Candace asked, though she knew. This was his home. I need to talk to you, James said. Inside, if that's okay. Riley was asleep in the back seat, her head on Candace's lap. The day had worn her out. Candace gently stroked the girl's braids. Okay, she said. James parked in a circular driveway in front of a beautiful house with white columns and large windows glowing with light. He came around to open Candace's door, then carefully lifted Riley into his arms. She didn't wake, just curled against his chest. "Follow me," he said. Inside, the house was exactly what Candace expected. Marble floors, high ceilings, expensive furniture. But it also felt empty somehow. Like a magazine photo instead of a home. A woman in her 60s appeared from another room. She wore gray slacks and a cardigan. "Miss Patricia," James said. "Can you put Riley to bed? She's had a big day." "Of course, Mr. Bennett." The woman took Riley gently. She glanced at Candace with curiosity but didn't ask questions. When they were alone, James gestured to a sitting room off the main hallway. "Please. Sit." Candace sat on the edge of a cream-colored sofa. James sat across from her in a matching chair. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I want to offer you a job," he said directly. Candace blinked. "What?" "A live-in position. Taking care of Riley. Miss Patricia is wonderful, but she's not what Riley needs. Riley needs someone young, energetic, someone who can really engage with her. Someone who cares." "You don't know me," Candace said. "We spent one day together. I know enough. I watched you with my daughter today. You were patient, kind, attentive. You made her happier than I've seen her in months. And Riley's instincts about people are usually right." Candace's heart was racing. What exactly would this job involve? Being here when Riley gets home from school. Helping with homework. Playing with her. Taking her to activities. Being a positive presence in her life. Miss Patricia would still handle cooking and household management. You'd focus on Riley. And where would I live? We have a guest house out back. 2 bedrooms, full kitchen and bathroom. It's yours. Plus a salary, health insurance, everything you need. Sounded too good to be true. Candace waited for the catch. "What do you get out of this?" she asked. "A happy daughter. Peace of mind that she's cared for. Time to focus on my work knowing she's not lonely." James met her eyes. "And maybe a chance to be a better father, learning from someone who clearly knows how to connect with children. I'm not a therapist or a trained nanny. No, but you're a teacher. And more importantly, you're someone who sees Riley as a person, not a job." Candace thought about sleeping on a bench tonight. Thought about the cold and the fear and the hunger. Thought about another winter approaching with no shelter. Then she thought about Riley's face today. The joy and the connection. The way the little girl had held her hand. "When would I start?" she asked. James smiled. "Right now if you're willing." "I accept," Candace said without hesitation. "Thank you. I'll work hard. I'll take good care of her." "I know you will." James stood. "Let me show you the guest house. We'll get you settled tonight and tomorrow we can discuss details, salary, schedule, all of that." Candace followed him through the main house and out a back door. The yard was enormous, with gardens and a pool and, tucked in the back corner, a small house that looked like a cottage from a fairy tale. James unlocked the door. Inside was a fully furnished space with a living area, kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom. Everything was clean and ready. "The previous nanny lived here before she retired last year," James explained. "We haven't filled the position since. Riley went through 3 nannies before Miss Patricia, and none of them worked out. Riley said they were all too strict or too boring." "I'll try not to be boring," Candace said. She ran her hand along the back of the couch. "Real furniture. A real home. There are clothes in the closet from before if they fit. Basic supplies in the kitchen and bathroom. Tomorrow we'll go shopping for anything else you need." James pulled out his phone. "What's your cell number? Or do you need a phone?" "I had to sell mine months ago," Candace admitted. "We'll get you one tomorrow. For tonight if you need anything the main house is always open. Just come knock." He started to leave then turned back. "Candace, I know this is sudden. If you need time to think about it, to consider—" "No," she interrupted. "I don't need time. This is an answer to prayers I stopped praying. I accept with my whole heart." James nodded. "Then welcome to the family." After he left, Candace walked through her new home in a daze. She opened the refrigerator and found it stocked with food. Checked the bathroom and found towels and toiletries. Looked in the bedroom and saw a comfortable bed with clean sheets. She sat on the edge of the bed and started to cry. Not sad tears, but the kind that come when something inside you finally releases. When you've been holding your breath for so long and finally remember how to breathe. 6 hours ago she'd been homeless and hopeless. Now she had a home, a job, a purpose. All because a little girl had asked her to spend the day together. All because she'd said yes to kindness. Candace took a long hot shower. Put on clean pajamas from the closet that fit well enough. Climbed into bed between soft sheets. The mattress was comfortable. The room was warm. She was safe. She thought about her mother who had always told her that goodness comes back around. That kindness matters. That hope is never truly lost. You were right, Mama, Candace whispered to the ceiling. You were right about everything. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, ready for her new life to begin. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of routine and joy. Candace woke each morning in her cottage, made breakfast, and walked to the main house just as Riley was finishing her own breakfast with Miss Patricia. Candace. Riley would shout every morning, running to hug her like they'd been apart for days instead of hours. They'd walk to the end of the long driveway together to wait for the school bus. Riley would chatter about what she hoped to learn that day, and Candace would remind her to be kind to her classmates and to raise her hand before speaking. During the school day, Candace helped Miss Patricia with light housework, though the older woman insisted she didn't need to. Mr. Bennett hired you for Riley, dear. Not for dusting. But Candace couldn't sit idle. She organized Riley's playroom, creating learning centers for art, reading, and science. She researched fun activities for 7-year-olds. She planned educational games and crafts. When Riley came home at 3:30 each afternoon, Candace was waiting at the end of the driveway. Riley would run off the bus and straight into her arms. How was your day, sweetheart? Candace would ask every time. Better now that you're here, Riley would answer. They'd do homework together at the kitchen table. Riley was smart but easily distracted. Candace had patience, breaking down problems into manageable pieces, making learning feel like play. When homework was done, they'd have a snack and then go outside to play or work on a craft project or read together. Riley blossomed. She smiled more, talked more. Her teacher sent home a note saying Riley seemed happier and more focused at school. James noticed too. He came home earlier now, usually by 6 instead of 9 or 10. He'd find Candace and Riley in the playroom or the yard and he'd join them. At first he seemed awkward, like he didn't quite know how to play with his own daughter. But Candace would pull him into whatever they were doing and slowly he relaxed. They'd do puzzles together, the three of them on the floor. They'd play board games at the dinner table. They'd read stories before bed with James doing funny voices that made Riley giggle. You're good at this, Candace told him one evening after Riley had gone to bed. They were cleaning up the playroom together, putting away toys and books. I'm learning, James said. From you. You already knew how. You just forgot for a while. James picked up a stuffed elephant and set it on the shelf. I was drowning in work, using it to avoid dealing with loss. But watching you with Riley, seeing how present you are, how much joy you take in simple moments, it reminds me what matters. She's an amazing kid. She is. And she's different since you came. Happier. More secure. James looked at Candace. You've been here 3 weeks and it already feels like you've been here forever. In the best way. Candace felt her cheeks warm. I love being here. This job doesn't feel like work. It feels like family. Something shifted in James's expression. Good. That's good. They stood there in the playroom surrounded by toys and books, and Candace became aware of how close they were standing. How James was looking at her with an intensity that made her heart beat faster. I should go, she said quickly. Early morning tomorrow. Riley wants to bake cookies before school. Of course. James stepped back. Thank you, Candace. For everything. In her cottage that night, Candace sat on the couch and tried to understand what she was feeling. Gratitude, definitely. Joy at having Riley in her life. But there was something else too. Something she felt when James smiled at her. When their hands accidentally touched while playing a game. When she caught him watching her with that soft expression. She couldn't be attracted to him. That would be foolish and complicated. He was her employer. Riley's father. A billionaire CEO while she was a formerly homeless woman he'd taken a chance on. But her heart didn't care about logic. It just kept beating faster every time he came home. Every time he laughed at something she said. Every time he looked at her like she was someone special. Stop it, she told herself firmly. Don't mess this up. Meanwhile, in the main house, James sat in his home office staring at his computer without seeing the screen. He kept thinking about Candace's smile. The way she moved through his home like sunshine, bringing light to corners that had been dark for too long. He hadn't been attracted to anyone since his wife died. Hadn't wanted to be. But there was something about Candace that drew him in. Her kindness, yes. Her way with Riley, absolutely. But also her strength. The way she'd survived terrible circumstances without losing her softness. The way she chose hope and gratitude over bitterness. She was beautiful too. He'd thought that the first day, even when she was soaked and exhausted on that park bench. Now healthy and happy, she was radiant. Her eyes sparkled when she played with Riley. Her laugh filled the house with warmth. James shook his head. He couldn't pursue this. She worked for him. The power dynamic was all wrong. She might feel pressured to return feelings she didn't have just to keep her job. But then he remembered how she looked at him sometimes. The way she blushed when their eyes met. The way she found excuses to spend time with him, to include him in activities with Riley. Maybe, he whispered to the empty office. Maybe it's not just me. Across the yard, in two separate houses, Candace and James both fell asleep thinking about each other, both telling themselves it was impossible, both feeling their hearts argue otherwise. 2 days later, Riley couldn't sleep. Candace heard her crying through the baby monitor James had given her. "Just in case she needs you at night," he'd said. Candace pulled on a robe over her pajamas and hurried to the main house. She used the key James had given her to let herself in quietly, then went upstairs to Riley's bedroom. Riley was sitting up in bed, hugging her stuffed bunny, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, sweetheart." Candace sat on the edge of the bed and pulled Riley into her arms. "What's wrong?" "Bad dream," Riley sobbed. "About being alone. About everyone leaving me. I'm here. I'm not leaving. Promise." "I promise." Candace rocked her gently. "You're safe, Riley?" "So safe." Riley's crying slowly subsided. "Tell me a story? About when you were little?" Candace thought about her childhood. She'd had a good one full of love. Her mother had worked 2 jobs but always made time for bedtime stories and helping with homework. They'd been poor but happy. "When I was 7 like you," Candace began, "my mama worked at a diner during the day and cleaned offices at night. We lived in a tiny apartment with just 2 rooms. But every Sunday mama would make pancakes and we'd have a breakfast party, just the 2 of us." "That sounds nice," Riley murmured, her head on Candace's shoulder. "It was. We didn't have much money but we had each other. Mama always said love was more valuable than gold." "Do you miss her?" "Every single day. She was the best person I ever knew." "What happened to her?" Candace took a breath. She'd avoided talking about this in detail but Riley deserved honesty. "She got cancer. A bad kind that spread fast. The treatment was expensive. Insurance only covered some of it. I used all my savings, sold everything I had. But it wasn't enough. The cancer was too strong." "I'm sorry," Riley whispered. "Me too, baby. After she died, I couldn't pay my bills anymore. I'd missed so much work taking care of her that I lost my teaching job. Then I lost my apartment. I tried to find another job, but without an address or a phone, it was nearly impossible. I ended up on the street. That must have been so scary." "It was. The scariest time of my life. But even then, Mama's lessons stayed with me. She taught me to look for kindness, to never give up hope, to stay soft even when the world felt hard." "Is that why you said yes when I asked to spend the day with you?" "Partly. But mostly because you reminded me why life is worth living. You reminded me that connection and love matter more than anything else." Riley hugged her tighter. "I'm glad you said yes." "Me too, sweetheart." Neither of them noticed James standing in the doorway. He'd heard Riley crying and come to check on her, but stopped when he saw Candace was already there. He'd listened to the whole story, his heart breaking for what Candace had endured. He'd known the basics. But hearing the details, the depth of her sacrifice for her mother, the struggle and fear she'd faced, it made him respect her even more. She could have become hard and angry. Instead, she'd chosen to remain kind. To give love even when life had taken so much from her. James cleared his throat softly so as not to startle them. "Everything okay?" Candace looked up. "Bad dream. We're okay now though, right, Riley?" Riley nodded, but she reached out for James too. "Daddy, can you stay?" James came to sit on the other side of Riley's bed. "Of course." They sat there together, Riley between them. James met Candace's eyes over Riley's head. Something passed between them. Understanding. Respect. Connection. "Tell Daddy about the pancake parties," Riley said sleepily. Candace smiled. "My mama used to make Sunday pancakes. She'd let me help mix the batter. We'd make different shapes with the batter in the pan. Animals and letters and silly faces." "Can we do that?" Riley asked. "This Sunday?" "Absolutely," Candace said. "I want to help too," James added. "If that's okay." "The more the merrier," Candace said. Riley yawned. "Daddy, Candace is the best. Don't you think?" James looked at Candace. "Yeah, baby. She really is." Candace felt that warmth in her cheeks again. She focused on Riley. "Time to sleep now, sweetheart. Sweet dreams this time. Will you stay until I fall asleep?" Riley asked. "Both of us will," James said. They sat on either side of Riley's bed, keeping watch. Riley's breathing slowly evened out as sleep claimed her. But neither Candace nor James moved. They stayed there in the dim glow of Riley's nightlight, two people brought together by a lonely little girl, both feeling something growing between them that neither quite knew how to name. Finally, James whispered, "Thank you for telling her about your mother. For being honest. She deserves honesty. I'm sorry for what you went through. Losing your mother, losing everything. That took incredible strength to survive. Some days I didn't feel strong. Some days I just felt broken. But you kept going. That's what strength is." Candace looked at Riley's sleeping face. "She's worth keeping going for. You both are." James heard what she didn't say. That they'd given her a reason to hope again. A purpose beyond mere survival. "We should let her sleep," he said quietly, standing. They tiptoed out of Riley's room together. In the hallway, James touched Candace's arm gently. "I'm glad she has you," he said. "I'm glad we both do." "I'm the lucky one," Candace replied. "You gave me my life back. You did that yourself. I just opened a door." They stood close in the dark hallway. Close enough that Candace could smell his cologne. Close enough to see the emotion in his eyes. "Good night, James," she whispered. "Good night, Candace." She walked back to her cottage feeling his eyes on her the whole way. When she climbed back into bed, she couldn't stop smiling. Something was changing. Something beautiful and terrifying and absolutely impossible to ignore. Sunday morning came bright and clear. Candace woke early and went to the main house to find James already in the kitchen, looking confused by the waffle maker. "You're up early," she said with a smile. "Couldn't sleep." James gestured helplessly at the kitchen. "I was trying to get a head start on pancakes, but I think I'm in over my head. Let me help." Candace moved beside him at the counter. Their arms brushed and she felt that spark again. Together they mixed batter, chatting about easy things. James told her about Riley's upcoming school play. Candace mentioned wanting to start a small garden with Riley in the spring. The conversation flowed naturally, comfortably. Riley thundered down the stairs at 8 o'clock, still in her pajamas, her braids messy from sleep. "Pancake party," she announced. For the next hour, the three of them made pancakes in all kinds of shapes. James turned out to be terrible at it, making lumpy blobs that they all laughingly agreed looked like monsters. Candace made perfect circles and even managed a decent butterfly. Riley made letters, spelling out LOV. "Because I love both of you," she said, drizzling syrup over her creation. Candace's throat tightened with emotion. "We love you too, sweet girl." "So much," James added, ruffling Riley's hair. After breakfast, Riley wanted to watch a movie. They settled on the big couch in the family room, Riley in the middle, snuggled under a blanket. Halfway through, Riley fell asleep, exhausted from staying up late the night before. "She's out," James whispered, looking at his daughter fondly. "She had a rough night," Candace said. "But she's okay now. Thanks to you." Candace started to stand to give James space alone with Riley, but he caught her hand. "Stay," he said. "Please." So she stayed. They sat on the couch with Riley sleeping between them, watching a cartoon movie neither of them cared about, both hyper-aware of each other's presence. "Can I ask you something?" James said eventually. "Of course. Do you ever think about teaching again? Going back to that career?" Candace considered. "Sometimes. I love teaching. Loved seeing kids learn and grow. But right now, I'm exactly where I want to be. Here. Here." She looked at him. "With Riley. And with you." James's eyes darkened. "Candace. I know I work for you," she said quickly. "I know that complicates things. But I can't pretend I don't feel." "Feel what?" His voice was rough. "Connected to you. To this family. Like I belong here." "You do belong here." James shifted slightly closer, careful not to disturb Riley. "You belong here more than you know." "James, I don't want to assume anything. I don't want to make this awkward." "It's not awkward. It's just complicated." He paused. "I haven't felt this way about anyone since my wife died. Didn't think I could. But then you walked into our lives and suddenly everything feels lighter. Brighter. Possible." Candace's heart was pounding. "I feel the same way. But I'm afraid. What if this doesn't work? What if I lose this job, this home, Riley?" "That won't happen. No matter what happens between us personally, your place here is secure. Riley needs you. I need you. Not as an employee. As family." "Family," Candace repeated softly. "We don't have to rush anything," James said. "We can take this slow. Figure it out as we go." But I want you to know that what I feel for you is real. It's not gratitude or convenience. It's genuine. It's real for me too, Candace admitted. So real it scares me. Riley stirred between them, making a small noise in her sleep. They both looked at her, their shared love for this child clear on both their faces. She'd be happy, James said. If this became more than it is now. She's already asked me twice if I'm going to be her new mom, Candace said with a small laugh. What did you tell her? That I love her like she's already mine. James reached across Riley's sleeping form and took Candace's hand. Then let's see where this goes. Slowly. Carefully. But honestly. Okay, Candace agreed. Honestly. They sat there holding hands, connected across the small space of the couch, both feeling something settle into place. Something right and good and worth protecting. That evening, after Riley had gone to bed, James asked Candace to take a walk with him through the garden. The night was cool but clear, stars visible above them. I want to tell you about my wife, James said as they walked. About Elena. You don't have to, Candace said gently. I want to. It feels important. So James told her about meeting Elena in college. About falling in love fast and hard. About building a life together, starting his company, dreaming of a family. About the joy when Riley was born, and the horror when complications set in. She died 3 days after giving birth, James said, his voice rough with old grief. I barely got to say goodbye. And suddenly I was alone with this tiny baby, drowning in loss, having no idea how to be a father. But you figured it out. I survived. I'm not sure I figured it out. I built the company into something huge, thinking success would fill the void. It didn't. And meanwhile, Riley grew up with a father who was physically present but emotionally absent. You're not absent anymore. Because you showed me what I was missing. You showed me how to be present. How to find joy in simple moments. James stopped walking and turned to face her. Elena would have liked you. She would have been grateful that Riley has you in her life. Tears filled Candace's eyes. That means everything to me. I'm not trying to replace her memory. I'm not looking for a replacement mother for Riley. I know. But I am falling for you. The real you. Separate from any role or job or responsibility. Just you. Candace stepped closer. I'm falling too. Maybe I have been since that first day. Since you showed me kindness when you didn't have to. I had to, James said. Riley wouldn't have let me leave you there. And looking back, I'm so grateful for that. They stood in the garden surrounded by flowers and moonlight, and James cupped Candace's face gently in his hands. Can I kiss you? He asked. Yes, she breathed. The kiss was soft and sweet, full of promise and possibility. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. This is really happening, Candace said wonderingly. If you want it to. I want it to. I want all of this. You Riley, this life. I want to be part of your family. You already are, James said. You already are. 3 weeks later, James's mother came to visit. Candace had been nervous about meeting her, and now that the day had arrived, she was nearly sick with anxiety. She's going to hate me, Candace said to Miss Patricia as they prepared lunch. Nonsense, dear. Mrs. Bennet is particular, but she's fair. I'm her son's employee who he's dating. That's a scandal waiting to happen. Miss Patricia patted her arm. Love has its own logic. She'll see that. Catherine Bennet arrived in a town car at precisely noon. She was a striking woman in her late 60s, dressed in an expensive blue pantsuit, her silver hair perfectly styled. She looked exactly like what she was, old money and high society. Riley ran out to greet her. Grandma. Hello, darling. Catherine kissed Riley's forehead. My, you've grown. And you look so happy. I'm happy. Wait until you meet Candace. She's the best. Catherine's eyes sharpened with interest. Is that so? James came out to greet his mother, Candace hanging back in the doorway. She'd worn a simple maroon dress, wanting to look presentable but not like she was trying too hard. Catherine hugged her son, then turned her attention to Candace. Her gaze was assessing, taking in everything in a single sweep. Mother, this is Candace Rivers, James said, his hand finding Candace's back. Candace, my mother, Catherine Bennet. It's wonderful to meet you, Mrs. Bennet, Candace said, extending her hand. Catherine shook it firmly. So you're the one I've been hearing about. Grandma, Candace used to be a teacher and she's teaching me so many things, Riley jumped in. And she makes the best chocolate chip cookies. And she plays games with me every day. And she tells the best stories. Quite a recommendation, Catherine said, her expression unreadable. Lunch was tense. Catherine asked polite questions about Candace's background, and Candace answered honestly. She didn't hide her past homelessness or her struggles. She figured if Catherine Bennett was going to judge her, she might as well have all the facts. "So you were living on the street when my son met you," Catherine said, cutting her chicken with precise movements. "Yes, ma'am. For 6 months. And now you're living here, caring for my granddaughter and dating my son." "Mother," James warned. "It's okay," Candace said. She looked at Catherine directly. "I know how it looks, but I love Riley like she's my own daughter. And I care deeply for James. This isn't about money or security, though I won't pretend those things don't matter. This is about family. About finding where I belong. And you believe you belong here? In a world so different from where you came from? I believe love matters more than backgrounds. I believe Riley needs people who genuinely care about her well-being. I believe I can be good for this family, and they can be good for me." Catherine studied her for a long moment. Then she turned to Riley. "Do you like Candace, darling?" "I love her, Grandma. She makes me happy. She makes Daddy happy too. We're like a real family now." "I see." Catherine dabbed her mouth with her napkin. "And what are your intentions toward my son, Miss Rivers?" "To love him," Candace said simply. "To be there for him and Riley. To build a life together if he wants that. To be honest and kind and present." After lunch, Catherine asked to speak with Candace privately. They walked through the garden, Catherine's heels clicking on the stone path. "My son has been through tremendous pain," Catherine said. "Losing Elena nearly destroyed him. He closed himself off emotionally, threw himself into work. I've worried about him for years." "I understand. And Riley, my darling granddaughter, she's needed more than James could give her. I've tried to fill the gaps, but I'm an old woman with my own life. She's a wonderful child." Catherine stopped walking and turned to face Candace. "Since you came into their lives, I've seen changes. James calls me more, sounds lighter. Riley glows when she talks about you. My son is happy again." Candace waited, afraid to hope. "I'll be honest, Miss Rivers. Your background concerns me. Not because of any personal failing but because of the scrutiny it will bring. James is a prominent businessman. The press will have a field day if they find out about your past." "I know. But," Catherine continued, "happiness matters more than appearances. My granddaughter loves you. My son loves you. And from what I've seen today, that love is returned genuinely." "It is," Candace said, her voice thick with emotion. "They've given me a reason to hope again. I would never do anything to hurt them." Catherine reached out and took Candace's hand. "Then you have my blessing. Not that you need it, but you have it nonetheless. Welcome to the family, dear." Candace started to cry. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "Just love them," Catherine said. "That's all any of us can ask." They walked back to the house together. James was waiting on the terrace, anxiety clear on his face. When he saw his mother holding Candace's hand, both women smiling, relief flooded his features. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Everything is perfect," Catherine said. She kissed Candace's cheek. "I'll expect regular visits from now on. I want to get to know my new daughter better." That evening, after Catherine had left and Riley was in bed, Candace and James sat together on the terrace under the stars. "I was so scared," Candace admitted. "I thought she'd hate me. My mother is tough but she's fair. And she sees what matters, that we're happy." "Are you? Happy?" James pulled her close. "Happier than I've been in years. You brought life back into this house. Back into me. You saved my life," Candace said. "Literally and figuratively. You gave me hope when I had none." "We saved each other," James said. "That's how the best love works." 2 months passed in a happy blur. Candace's role in the family became less defined and more natural. She wasn't just Riley's caregiver anymore. She was part of the family in every meaningful way. One evening, James called Candace to his office after Riley had gone to bed. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. "Sit down," he said. "I want to talk to you about something." Candace sat worried. "Is everything okay?" "More than okay." James came around the desk to sit beside her. "I've been thinking about your teaching career. About how much you loved it." "James, I'm happy here. I don't need." "Let me finish," he said gently. "You're amazing with Riley. The way you teach her things, the way you make learning fun. You have a gift, Candace. And I don't want that gift to go to waste." "Where is this going?" "I want to fund your return to teaching. Not instead of being here with Riley but in addition to it. There's a wonderful private school about 20 minutes from here. They have an opening for a second-grade teacher starting next fall. I know the headmaster. I could make a call. Candace stared at him. You want me to go back to teaching? I want you to have everything you deserve. A career you love. Financial independence. The chance to make a difference in more children's lives. But what about Riley? Riley goes to school too. You'd have the same hours she does. You'd still be here every evening and weekend. You'd still be her person. But you'd also have your own professional life. Your own identity beyond this house. Candace felt tears welling up. You'd do that for me? I'd do anything for you. You know that. James took her hands. You've given me and Riley so much. Let me give you this. Let me help you rebuild your career. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Please. Candace threw her arms around him. Yes. Yes, of course, yes. Thank you. James held her tight. You deserve the world, Candace. I want to help you get it. The next day James made calls. Within a week, Candace had an interview at Riverside Academy. Within 2 weeks she had the job, starting the following September. She would teach second grade. She would have her own classroom, her own students, her own career again. The school provided a signing bonus that James insisted she keep for herself. He also opened a bank account in her name with a substantial deposit. Financial security, he said when she protested. You've lived without it for too long. I never want you to feel that vulnerable again. This is too much. It's not nearly enough. James cupped her face. You're going to be an incredible teacher. Those kids are so lucky. Candace felt like she was dreaming. 6 months ago she'd been sleeping on a bench. Now she had a home, a family, a career, and a man who loved her enough to help her reclaim her dreams. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. Just be happy. That's all I want. They told Riley together that evening. Her reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. You're going to be a teacher? Riley bounced on the couch. That's so cool. Can I come visit your classroom? Anytime you want, Candace promised. And you'll still be here with me after school? Every single day. Nothing changes with us. Riley hugged her tight. Good. Because you're my Candace and I don't want to share you too much. You'll always be my priority, Candace assured her. Always. That night, lying in bed in her cottage, Candace thought about the journey that had brought her here. From rock bottom to this beautiful life. From hopelessness to more happiness than she'd ever imagined possible. She thought about her mother who had taught her to never give up. To keep hoping. To believe in goodness even when the world felt dark. I wish you could see this, Mama, she whispered to the ceiling. I wish you could meet them. Riley and James. The family I found when I thought I'd lost everything. She could almost hear her mother's voice. I see it, baby. And I'm so proud of you. Candace fell asleep smiling, grateful for every moment that had led her to this place. The bad times had been terrible, but they'd made these good times feel like miracles. And she was determined to appreciate every single second. Spring came to the Bennett estate with an explosion of color. The gardens bloomed with tulips and daffodils. The trees budded with new leaves. Everything felt fresh and full of possibility. James had been acting strange for days. Nervous. Distracted. He kept checking his phone and disappearing for mysterious errands. Candace tried not to worry, but she couldn't help wondering if something was wrong. One Saturday in late April, James announced they were having a special family dinner. Just the three of them, something fancy. Why? Riley asked suspiciously. It's not anyone's birthday. Can't I want to celebrate my favorite people? James said, but he wouldn't meet Candace's eyes. That evening, Miss Patricia prepared an elaborate meal. The dining room was decorated with flowers and candles. James wore a suit. Riley wore a pretty green dress. Candace wore a simple blue dress that James had bought her the week before. All through dinner, James seemed distracted. He barely ate. He kept looking at Candace and Riley with an expression that was tender and nervous all at once. Daddy, you're acting weird, Riley finally said. Am I? James laughed. Maybe I'm just happy. You're happy a lot now, Riley observed. Because of Candace. Yes, James agreed. Because of Candace. After dessert, James stood up. His hands were shaking slightly. I need to say something, he began. To both of you. Candace and Riley exchanged glances. James looked at Riley first. Baby girl, you know I love you more than anything in this world, right? I know, Daddy. And you know Candace loves you too. Aha. Riley was starting to smile. James turned to Candace. 6 months ago, my daughter asked a homeless woman to spend the day with her. It was the best decision she ever made because that woman changed our lives completely. Candace felt tears starting. James? Let me finish, he said gently. You brought light into our darkness. You reminded me how to be present, how to love, how to live instead of just existing. You made Riley happy. You made me happy. You made us a family. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Candace gasped. I know we've only known each other 6 months, James continued, dropping to one knee beside her chair. But when you know, you know. I love you, Candace Rivers. I love your strength and your kindness and your beautiful heart. I love the way you care for Riley. I love the way you see the best in people. I love everything about you. He opened the box to reveal a beautiful diamond ring, simple and elegant. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and Riley's mother, officially and forever? Candace was crying openly now. Yes, she managed to say through her tears. Yes, of course, yes. Riley squealed and jumped out of her chair, launching herself at both of them. You're going to be my real mom? For real, for real. For real, Candace said, laughing and crying at the same time. James slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Then he pulled both Candace and Riley into his arms, the three of them hugging in a tangle of joy and tears and laughter. I love you, James whispered to Candace. So much. I love you too, she whispered back. Both of you. My family. Our family, James corrected. Later, after Riley had finally gone to bed, too excited to sleep but eventually giving in to exhaustion, James and Candace sat together on the terrace. I was so nervous, James admitted. What if you'd said no? How could I say no? You're everything I never let myself hope for. You're everything I didn't know I needed. James pulled her close. I want to give you the wedding of your dreams. Whatever you want, wherever you want, whenever you want. I don't need fancy, Candace said. I just need you and Riley and people who love us. That's all. Then that's what we'll have. James kissed her forehead. Soon. I don't want to wait long. I want you to be my wife as soon as possible. Me too, Candace agreed. She looked at the ring on her finger, still not quite believing this was real. James, I need to say something. Anything. Thank you for seeing me. That day in the park you could have walked away. You could have told Riley no. But you saw me as a person, not just a homeless woman. You gave me dignity along with help. That meant everything. You deserved both. You deserved everything. And you gave it to me. You gave me hope when I had none. Purpose when I felt worthless. Love when I thought I'd never feel it again. Candace turned to look at him. You saved my life, James Bennett. And now I get to spend the rest of it loving you and Riley. That's better than any fairy tale. This is just the beginning, James said. We have so much ahead of us. Your teaching career, watching Riley grow up, maybe more children if you want them. More children? Candace's eyes widened. Only if you want. No pressure. Riley is enough if that's all you want. I'd love more children, Candace said softly. A house full of them if we're blessed that way. Then that's what we'll hope for. James kissed her, slow and sweet. But for now, let's just focus on becoming a family officially. Everything else can wait. They sat under the stars, wrapped in each other's arms, two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. A homeless woman and a billionaire. A lonely little girl and a woman who needed to be needed. Three broken pieces that fit together perfectly to make something whole. Does this story remind you of the power of kindness and taking chances on people? What would you do if you could change someone's life with one simple yes? Subscribe to see how their beautiful family story continues, and share your thoughts in the comments below. The wedding took place 6 weeks later in the same park where Riley had first approached Candace. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends. Miss Patricia was there, wiping tears throughout. Catherine Bennett sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Riley served as the flower girl, taking her job very seriously. Candace wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated. James wore a classic black suit. They'd chosen to write their own vows. James went first. Candace, you came into my life when I needed you most, even though I didn't know it. You showed me that love isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, being present, choosing each other every day. You loved my daughter before you loved me, and that told me everything I needed to know about your heart. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that heart. To support your dreams. To be your partner in everything. To love you through good times and hard times. To build a life with you that's full of kindness, hope, and love. Candace could barely see through her tears. James, when I met you, I was at my lowest point. I'd lost everything I thought mattered. But you taught me that hope isn't lost, it's just waiting to be found. You gave me dignity when I felt worthless. You gave me a home when I was homeless. You gave me a family when I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone. But most of all, you gave me love when I thought I'd never feel it again. I promise to cherish that gift every day. To be the best partner I can be. To love Riley like she's my own. To support your dreams like you support mine. To choose kindness always. To never forget where we came from or how lucky we are to have found each other. There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, James kissed Candace like she was the most precious thing in the world. Riley ran up to hug them both. We're a real family now, she said, her voice full of wonder. Forever and ever. Forever and ever, Candace agreed. The reception was simple but joyful. They'd rented a pavilion in the park with tables and a small dance floor. There was cake and music and laughter. Catherine gave a toast about how love finds us when we least expect it. Miss Patricia cried happy tears all afternoon. When it came time for the father-daughter dance, James danced with Riley first. Then he called Candace over and the three of them danced together, a family united. This is perfect, Riley said, her head against Candace's side. Absolutely perfect. Later, as the sun began to set, James and Candace stood at the edge of the celebration, watching their guests mingle and Riley play with some cousins. Happy? James asked. Beyond happy, Candace said. This feels like a dream. It's real. We're real. Candace looked at the park bench visible in the distance. The bench where she'd been sitting 6 months ago, hopeless and alone. It felt like a lifetime ago. Like a different person's life. I want to do something, she said suddenly. Something to help other people like me. What do you mean? I want to start a program. For people experiencing homelessness. Help them get back on their feet. Job training, interview clothes, resume help. All the things I needed and couldn't find. James smiled. That's a beautiful idea. Let's make it happen. Really? Really? We'll create a foundation. Fund it properly. Make a real difference. Candace hugged him tight. This is why I love you. You always say yes to goodness. I learned from the best, James said. They announced the foundation at the reception. The Candace Rivers Foundation for New Beginnings. Catherine immediately pledged a substantial donation. Other guests followed suit. By the end of the evening, they had enough funding to launch the program by fall. People need to know there's hope, Candace said in her thank you speech. No matter how dark things get, there's always a chance for new beginnings. Riley taught me that when she asked me to spend a day with her. James taught me that when he offered me a job and a home. Now I want to teach others. To pass on the kindness I received. 3 months after the wedding, the foundation opened its doors. Candace ran it part-time, balancing it with her teaching job and her family life. James provided business expertise and funding. Riley volunteered there on weekends, helping sort donated clothes and make welcome packets for new clients. They helped hundreds of people that first year. Single mothers, veterans, people who'd had medical emergencies that bankrupted them, people who'd lost jobs and couldn't recover. People like Candace had been. Every person who came through their doors received dignity along with help. Job training, yes, but also counseling, healthcare connections, and most importantly, hope. One afternoon, a woman came in who reminded Candace of herself. Young, frightened, trying so hard to hold on to dignity when everything else was gone. I don't know if you can help me, the woman said. I've been to so many places. We can help, Candace assured her. That's what we're here for. As she sat with the woman, learning her story, offering resources and hope, Candace felt the circle completing. She'd received kindness when she needed it most. Now she could pass it forward. That's how it was supposed to work. That evening at home, Riley was doing homework at the kitchen table while Candace made dinner. James came in from work, kissed them both, then loosened his tie and joined Riley with her math problems. It was such a simple scene. So ordinary. But to Candace it was everything. She'd gone from having nothing to having everything that mattered. A husband who loved her. A daughter who adored her. A career that fulfilled her. A purpose beyond herself. Later that night, after Riley was asleep and James was reading in bed, Candace stood at the window of their bedroom looking out at the guest cottage where she'd first lived when she came to this house. What are you thinking about? James asked, setting down his book. How far I've come. How different my life is now. James came to stand beside her, wrapping his arms around her waist. You did this. You rebuilt your life through your own strength. You helped. We helped each other. That's what family does. Candace leaned back against him. I want to tell Riley the whole story someday. About how we met. About where I was. About how one question changed everything. She already knows the important parts. That you met when you both needed each other. That love and kindness brought you together. Do you think she understands how lucky we are? She does. She tells me all the time how grateful she is that you said yes that day. James kissed the top of Candace's head. We all are. 5 years later, the Bennett family had grown. Riley was 12, thriving in school and helping with her 2 younger siblings. Twin boys Benjamin and Lucas were 3 years old and full of energy. The house was loud and chaotic and filled with love. Candace still taught 2nd grade. Still ran the foundation part-time. Still made pancakes every Sunday morning with whoever wanted to help. James had scaled back his work hours, choosing family over empire. They were happy. One evening, Candace took Riley back to the park. They sat on the same bench where it had all started. This is where it happened, Candace said. Where you asked me to spend the day with you. Riley, now almost as tall as Candace, leaned against her shoulder. I remember. You looked so sad. I just wanted to help. You did help. You saved me. We saved each other, Riley said, echoing her father's words. I was lonely. You were lost. We found each other. Best decision you ever made, Candace said with a smile. Best decision you ever made saying yes. They sat there in comfortable silence, watching other families play in the park. Candace thought about that day 6 years ago. How cold and scared and hopeless she'd felt. How Riley's simple question had changed everything. She thought about her mother, who'd taught her to never give up hope. Who'd believed that goodness always comes back around. You were right, Mama, she whispered, knowing Riley wouldn't ask who she was talking to. About everything. Life wasn't perfect. They had challenges like any family. But they faced them together with kindness and patience and love. That's what mattered. Not the size of the house or the money in the bank, but the love they shared. The family they'd built together. As they walked back to the car, Riley slipped her hand into Candace's like she used to do when she was little. Mom, she said. She'd started calling Candace Mom shortly after the wedding, and it still made Candace's heart full every time. I'm glad I found you that day. Me too, baby, Candace said. Me too. And as they drove home together to James and the twins, to their loud, chaotic, beautiful life, Candace felt nothing but gratitude. For the little girl who'd asked for company. For the man who'd said yes to helping. For the family they'd become. For kindness. For hope. For love. For all of it. For everything.